Hello everyone, I'm Mina Man. Welcome to Higher Ground, the only show dedicated to finding common ground in the contentious debate over BC's natural resources. British Columbia's developing liquefied natural gas industry reached two important milestones last week with the release of pollution benchmarks for LNG greenhouse gas emissions and a new LNG taxation structure. What's the impact on BC's nascent LNG industry? Let's find out. It was a busy week for ministers and staff on the LNG file. First up, Environment Minister Mary Polak introduced new legislation and pollution benchmarks that the government says will ensure British Columbia will have the cleanest liquefied natural gas facilities in the world. So why is this important? Well, of course, greenhouse gases are linked to climate change, and in an effort to mitigate direct consequences related to global warming, the BC Liberal government in 2007 passed the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Target Act. This measure bound the province by law to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 33% by 2020. But the production of liquefied natural gas has the potential to increase GHG emissions and derail meeting that target. So, the government established a greenhouse gas emission benchmark, which LNG producers must meet. Companies looking to build liquefied natural gas plants in BC will now have to meet this pollution benchmark for their facilities, or else they will have to purchase offsets or pay into a technology fund. Either way, the government says these new measures will prove to be strong incentives for industry while still being flexible and fostering competitiveness. So far, feedback from key LNG proponents has been positive. However, the opposition has been ferocious, as critics claim the new legislation is a gutting of the 2007 Greenhouse Reduction Act. The other milestone hit last week was the release of the province's much-anticipated LNG taxation structure. At a press conference, BC Finance Minister Mike De Jong unveiled details of the new Liquefied Natural Gas Income Tax Act, which will tax an LNG project at a rate of 1.5% when production begins, then rise to 3.5% after capital costs are recovered. Eventually, the tax rate will rise to 5% in 2037 when the government expects the LNG industry will be well established within the province. Our very own Stuart Muir was there at the presser and provided this analysis immediately following the release.
This brings certainty to a question. It shows people that there's a negotiation that has resulted in some change that's in the direction people asked for. So I think the many players, and bear in mind that we have 18 different proponents and they have different views, different business models. They're all going to have a different perspective on this. So in amongst this group, there's probably going to be people who aren't as happy as others. But the fact that it provides certainty on this question will allow them to move forward in preparing the rest of their business plans.
There has been some controversy around last week's announcement because the provincial government last February had previously announced the LNG tax could be as high as 7%. However, according to some estimates, even under this reduced tax framework, provincial revenues from a single LNG plant could reach as high as $800 million, a significant contribution to help pay for education and healthcare in BC. Joining us today by phone, we have Stuart Muir. He's up in Fort St. John meeting with Northern BC mayors and community leaders. Stuart, tell us what you think industry reaction is to the new tax.
Their reaction is going to be, finally, we have a solid number that we can put into our business calculations. There are not 10 factors or 20 or 50 factors. There's hundreds of factors that they have to calculate. This is a really complex equation. Each one of those factors has to be nailed down. How much does the gas cost? What are the royalties we pay? On the countries that they're sending it to, how much will those people pay? How much will it cost to ship? The tax is just one of those factors. Now they know what it is, and so they can put it into the spreadsheet and move on.
Stuart, what about the tax itself, coming in at 3.5%? Some critics have called this a sellout by the province.
Here's what's happened. The province came out in February and said, we are planning to put a tax of up to 7% on the gas that's liquefied on the coast and then shipped to Asia Pacific countries. And we haven't decided what that number is, but it could be as much as 7%. That's what we heard back in February. Now, what we heard this week was that the number they decided would be 3.5%. So you've got some people saying, hey, that's too low. You said it would be up to 7. It's only 3.5%. That means less money for British Columbians. That can't be good.
No, that doesn't sound good at all. How do you get around it?
So as with any negotiation, the buyer has a position and the seller has a position. In this case, the seller is British Columbia. We're selling our natural gas to these countries. The buyer, well, it's those companies that are going to do the liquefaction and the export. So those two parties, whether it's buying a car, a house, or anything like that, there's a negotiation. And the BC position was up to 7%. And what was the purchaser side? Well, they wanted no tax at all.
Really? What did the province say?
The province said, no, we're going to stick to our guns. We want to have an extra tax because we know that British Columbians expect that. We know they've told us that electorally. So there's no way we're going to let you get away paying no tax on this. So that's what's happened. And it doesn't really surprise me that the 7%, up to 7% of early in 2014 has landed at the number it has because they've met halfway. The industry wanted 0. The province wanted up to 7. They agreed on 3.5. That's exactly halfway. And who hasn't bought a car, a house, where you've negotiated the difference between the buyer's expectation and the seller's, and you meet halfway? That's what's happened here.
And that's it for Higher Ground this week. Make sure you visit our website at resourceworks.com, sign up for our e-newsletter, and don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For ResourceWorks, I'm Mina Man. Thanks for watching.